All right, what is good, ladies and gentlemen, is the Master Reviewer back again with another review, and tonight we are doing a review for X-Men First Class. Before we begin, I do want to give a big thanks because we did hit 97 subscribers, got a new sub record there, and so yeah, once again, big thank you to all of the subscribers, commenters, recommenders, viewers, anyone that is interacting with the channel in any way, shape, or form. Greatly to appreciate. We're 3 away from 100, which is very exciting, assuming we didn't go down, which, sometimes happens. So yeah, once again, big thank you to 97 subscribers. And before we begin, I'll give a bit of background. I never saw this film. Again, after this one, I did see X-Men Days of Future Past and X-Men Apocalypse. I did not see Dark Phoenix, and I never watched New Mutants because it was horror, so I'm going to eventually have to review that for the channel. But yeah, I did not see X-Men First Class, so this was a first-time watch for me, but I did, when I was younger, I did watch a lot of clips of the film, so I did know a lot of the stuff that was going to happen. So yeah, in general, it was a first-time watch for me, but I did go into it knowing pretty much how most of the film was going to play out. So anyway, so yeah, let us just begin, starting off with the plot. So the plot of the film is that basically it is kind of just an origin story. I know that the previous X-Men film before this was X-Men Origins Wolverine. They kind of they trashed the whole idea of doing origin films for individual X-Men, and I guess they just decided to do one film for a bunch of different characters in the X-Men universe, in the Marvel universe, I guess. And so this film acts as an origin story for Charles Xavier, Magneto, how they ended up meeting, the motives that Magneto has for why he does what he does, basically. This film is basically meant to be the origin story for, I guess, the original trilogy of X-Men, basically, for a lot of the characters. So, yeah, the film basically shows how Magneto, how he, we see him in a concentration camp. His mother ended up dying at the hands of, I forgot his name is, he was using an alias, but it is Kevin Bacon's character, Shaw, basically, Sebastian Shaw, that is the villain of the film. At the start of the film, we see him motivating Eric through the death of his mother to activate his mutant powers, and the film is basically Eric is after revenge, basically trying to kill Shaw, and along the way he ends up meeting Charles Xavier, who ends up finding out about Shaw's plan to basically start World War III through the Cuban, this takes place during the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, so this film kind of works in the X-Men, the X-Men stuff into the Cuban Missile Crisis, basically making it so that Shaw himself was the one that orchestrates the Cuban Missile Crisis. His ultimate goal is to start World War III, and I'm not really sure that it would, I think his goal was, okay, nuclear war throughout the entire world, all the humans die, but the X-Men are apparently immune to radiation, but I don't think that would be the case. Again, none of this is supposed to be very realistic, but yeah, I'm assuming, just because you're an X-Men doesn't necessarily mean you're all of a sudden immune to radiation, so, or explosions for that matter. But anyway, so yeah, that is Shaw's ultimate goal. So most of the film is Eric working with Charles Xavier. Mystique is also there. At this point, she's still going by the name Raven. They end up building Cerebro with the help of the CIA. I'm pretty sure there's this one agent in the CIA that actually believes that mutants exist, but no one believes him. So he ends up working with Xavier and Mystique and Eric as well, and eventually he gets killed by one of Shaw's mutant henchmen. And so yeah, Hank is also in this film, aka Beast. He ends up working with Xavier in order to build Cerebro, and they use it in order to find a bunch of different mutants. They only end up getting a few though for this team that they're building in order to fight Shaw. And yeah, Shaw eventually, I think there's a mission that Eric, Xavier, and I think it was Eric, Xavier, and someone else was with them. I don't think it was Mystique. There's also this CIA agent, Moira, that is with them. She is the one that ended up contacting Xavier at first in order to get information about mutations and stuff, since she was spying on Shaw and heard him talk about mutations and stuff. So anyway, they're at a Russian, they end up going to investigate Shaw's whereabouts in a Russian base, basically. But they find out that Shaw's not there. They end up capturing Emma Frost, who is there, and so they find out that's how they find out Shaw's ultimate plan. In the meantime, Shaw went to the CIA base in order to recruit the mutants. The only one he ends up really recruiting is Angel. And yeah, then they're trying to remember what happens. Then I think Xavier, Professor X, he takes all of them to his home back in wherever it was, Winchester, I'm pretty sure. And then he converts it into basically what is going to be the future X-Men, the X-Men mansion, which I'm trying to remember I don't think that, because I'm pretty sure, did it always take place in England? I'm pretty sure that didn't the first film take place somewhere in America, I'm pretty sure. I'm actually kind of curious about that now, but I don't know if it's worth checking. final check. Just give me a second here. Okay, my mistake. He lived in Westchester, New York, and just, I guess, for some reason he has a British accent. But anyway, so he trains there along with Eric and the other mutants in order to like help them prepare for the fight that they're going to go through. And then the final third act happens where they end up going to the whole Cuban Missile Crisis area, and they prevent World War III, basically. Some stuff ends up going down. You have fighting action, all that kind of stuff. And eventually it culminates in Eric eventually confronting Shaw face to face, and he does end up killing him with the same coin that ended up he wasn't able to control as a kid, and so he uses that same coin in order to kill Shaw as revenge for killing his mother, even though at this point Eric expresses that he is basically ideologically very much similar to Shaw, and he basically agrees with everything that he feels about how mutants are the superior race and that ultimately humans will not accept mutants and stuff. And so yeah, that is, so Shaw's dead, and then the film kind of ends with the humans, basically the non-mutants. They send missiles. Basically, the governments are like, okay, we can end this here now with the mutants. Which no, you can't, because these are not the only mutants that exist. So they sent out both the U.S. ships and the Russian ships. They send out missiles to the beach in order to kill the mutants that are there. But Shaw's dead at this point. Eric stops them with his powers, and he is going to redirect them and hits all the ships. But I think Charles starts fighting him in order to stop him, so some of the missiles end up blowing up. And then Moira she starts shooting at Eric. He starts deflecting the bullets, and then he accidentally deflects one at Charles, which causes him to get paralyzed. And then from there, yeah, all the missiles, they don't end up reaching the ship, so that's good, I guess. And then so at this point, Eric gives a big speech about how the humans, they'll never accept the mutants and stuff, and so he basically tells all of Shaw's henchmen to go along with him, and then Mystique also ends up going along with Eric. And yeah, that is basically where the film, at this point, Charles is paralyzed. He wipes Moira's mind, so she cannot give any information to the government about where he is going to be training mutants. Basically, it's basically teasing that he's about to open up the school for gifted youngsters, whatever it was called. So, and then the film ends with Eric breaking out Emma Frost from jail. And yeah, so that is the plot of the film. I would give the plot, I'm going to give it a 4 to 5. I liked it. I think that it was very good, especially all the themes related to the X-Men films. Honestly, they're, at this point, I think they are my favorite Marvel franchise, just because of just how great the themes are of racism, and how this battle of ideologies of basically these people are not going to treat us well. It's they are going to oppress us. And so Eric is of the opinion of, we need to strike first, because they obviously I'm getting flustered over talking about this. It's really good. I really like the fact that he is a it's going to sound weird. I really like the fact that he is a Holocaust survivor, because it does add an extra layer of, he's already been through a struggle that really has oppressed him. And so there's very much a parallel where he's basically talking about throughout the film, oh, this is how it starts. It starts out with identification. It's they're going to round us up soon, and it's right now we're working with them, but soon they're going to realize that we're a threat to them, and they're going to start rounding us up, and they're going to experiment on us, and eventually there's definitely a parallel to the Holocaust that Eric draws his motivations from. And so he had this incredible line where Charles, at the end, in the third act, basically, when Eric is going to send the missiles out, Charles says these are good, there's hundreds of good innocent men on those ships, and they were just following orders. And then he has this great line basically saying, I wrote it down here, he says, I've been at the mercy of men just following orders my entire life, basically. Not the basically part, but I added in there. But yeah, so I thought that line was very good, and so I really like the kind of Holocaust comparison, that not the aspects of Eric being a Holocaust survivor. I think that really just really creates a great parallel to the kind of situations that they're in. So yeah, and so the plot, I would give it a 4 to 5. I really like that. Basically, it's an origin story for these characters, as well as tying it into the Cuban Missile Crisis. I think that was a pretty clever way to go about it, I would say. And yeah, overall 4 to 5. I like the plot. In terms of the characters, I think that these are basically younger versions of characters that we've seen in the original trilogy, and so I think that the actors, first of all, are pretty well cast. James McAvoy as Charles Xavier. I think was it Michael Fassbender? I feel I think it was Michael Fassbender. I think that's the name of the guy that plays Eric. So yeah, I think that they are, first of all, the acting was great, I would say, for the main characters. they got Kevin Bacon in order to play Shaw. I think that the actual characters themselves, Eric is good. Definitely Eric is one of the more interesting characters of like this guy. It's like a mutant. He's after revenge for Shaw. He ends up meeting Charles. They end up bonding, kind of becoming friends and stuff. And then later in the film, because of their diverging ideologies, they end up becoming like they still like respect each other, and they still don't want to fight, but they have no choice but to be on opposing sides of this issue. So I think that is great. The other characters, let's see here, Mystique. I think that it is nice that this movie we kind of get like a bit more of a backstory for Mystique, which in the original trilogy we did not have as much of. Like, none of these characters, honestly, we really had a lot of backstory for a lot of them in the original trilogy. So I think that this film does serve as a very good origin story for a lot of these characters. Beast, we see in this film how he ends up turning into Beast. I think that he was good he had this like one line that it was definitely kind of mean, where he says, the Mystique is talking to him, basically like saying like, oh, we should be proud of like who we are and stuff, and he says that no, that's just, even if like we stop the war tomorrow, and even if the society stops hating mutants, it's like my feet will never be considered normal, and you'll never, like, your blue form will always be considered ugly. Something like, he didn't say that verbatim, but he did definitely say something along the lines of like how she's not beautiful like in the form that she is, and society won't like treat her as beautiful. So I thought that was like kind of mean. That like the way he said it was like not the nicest. So, but I guess immediately after it's kind of showing his like desperation in the moment, and I guess immediately after he does end up turning into Beast. So I think, I don't know, just that scene kind of threw me off of his character a bit, but I do still think that he was a good character. Besides him, there is the actual First Class. For some reason, when I was a kid, it's like it's called X-Men First Class. For some reason, I was like, okay, this has something to do with like airports or something like that. Just like I was thinking of it as in like first classes and like airplane, like as in like first class as in like, okay, welcome to first class on like an airport. Like these are very important character, which it is. It's like, I guess maybe it could be like a double entendre, but I think like on watching it for the first time, I'm kind of realizing, no, first class, it means like this is the first class of X-Men that there is, and it's kind of meant to be more of a tie into the fact that like the school for X-Men, like the school that Charles has, this is what it means by first class. But for some reason I was like, oh, first class is like the business class in like an airport or like an airline, a plane or something like that. So I made the wrong connection there. But anyway, so other characters, Shaw, I think that Shaw was a good villain. He's kind of like basically just the precursor of Eric. He is the one that ultimately gives Eric the kind of motivation, push into this ideology that he, like, not, I think Eric could have probably turned out the same way even without Shaw, but Shaw definitely like was kind of, Shaw basically like kind of put the ideas into his mind of like, it definitely encouraged the ideas of basically how mutants are the superior race basically, and that like they need to wipe out the humans before the humans end up wiping them out. So yeah, besides them, let's see here, there are the actual first class of X-Men. So there is Alex, aka Havoc, Darwin, he is killed off immediately. There is Angel, who I think that she is the only one that ends up kind of like leaving and going to join Shaw. Besides her, there is Azazel, who is basically like kind of I don't want to say a ripoff of Nightcrawler, but basically the same kind of powers as Nightcrawler, except he's like a bit more visually, he's like a bit more devilish, I guess. There is Riptide, the guy that like creates cyclones and stuff. There is, who else is there? Banshee can like produce sonic waves for his like screeching sounds from his mouth. And yeah, all the first class, I don't really care for too much of them. Like, they're good in like the montages and stuff, but they're not like very extremely well developed characters. A lot of the first class X-Men, but you know, they're fine, I would say. And let's see here, any other characters. We get like a few cameos of like, I think Logan actually makes a cameo in this film, which was cool to see. There is, I think, William Stryker Sr., so Stryker, except his father is in this, which was, I guess, cool to see for a bit. And there was actually the actor that plays Jimmy in The Bear, which I have to get around to seeing the new season, actually. I thought like the benefit of this channel would be like, one of the benefits would be like anytime I review something on this channel, especially when it comes to like shows and anime, not like so much movies, it's like I actually have to go to theaters or wait for it to come out on streaming, which is a bit more difficult to do. But in the case of like series and like shows and anime, I'm able to like watch it at like the day it comes out, basically. So I thought like the benefit of like having review, like the more shows I review means like when ongoing shows I end up reviewing them, when the new season comes out, I'll be able to like review it while it's still like relatively new. And so I'll get like, honestly, I should be doing that more often, because it would probably get more views on the channel if I'd watched The Bear and reviewed it, like the new season, around the time that it came out. By now it's been like a few weeks, I think, that it's been out. Then I probably could have helped the channel out, because more people are going to be searching for The Bear season 5. I'm going on a tangent here, but basically I need to, although the more stuff I review, eventually like the list of ongoing shows is going to get bigger and bigger, and eventually like I will just be more drawn to review, like to watching it's not the fact that I'm like intentionally avoiding watching it, it's just I'm kind of
focusing on other stuff. But yeah, I need to get back to watching The Bear at some point. That is what I'm saying. I think I'm kind of trying to finish the BFDI. I'm watching Teapot right now, and so once I finish with that, I will hopefully then I kind of want to go. Then I want to go with The Bear, but then I'm waiting until I finish that first. So anyway, yeah, that went on a long side tangent there. So characters overall, I'm going to give the characters, I would say probably I'll go a 7 out of 10. I'm going to say pretty good characters. I do like the lead characters a lot. I think Moira, I forgot to mention her. She's fine. She's basically just the one that kind of introduces Charles to the conflict of the film of like Shaw being a threat, and so she doesn't really do too much. She's just kind of like along for the ride for most of the film, although she's pretty important. She does end up, she's the reason I guess Charles ends up getting paralyzed. But yeah, overall 7 out of 10 for the characters. I would say pretty good characters. In terms of the settings, let's see here. There is not really a specific location that there is in the film. There's like the final beach area at the end, which I think is pretty good and unique. There is, let's see here what else there is. I guess Charles's mansion area that the X-Men train at. Besides that, there's like the Russian area that they go to at one point. There was the the Nazi Germany scene at the beginning. Overall, the settings, they are, I'll go like I don't know, I don't love any of them, but I think that they all probably work for the purposes of the film. So I'm just going to go like I'll go like a 6 out of 10. I'll say above average settings. I don't really have too many thoughts on them. In terms of the action, okay, so this is where I think these X-Men movies, they're just always really fun with the action because unlike any other kind of superhero movie, it's like, what are the recent things I reviewed? Thor, Iron Man 2, The Punisher, Warzone, like those were like the recent Marvel films that I remember reviewing. So with all those films, it's like they focus on one character, and that one character has like a set of abilities that they're able to use. However, with these X-Men films, it's like pretty interesting with action because there's just such a wide variety of abilities that are used in these films, which makes it all the more fun to watch. It's like you have Magneto's magnetic powers, you have Shaw's powers of like the energy control and stuff. There is just, I'm not going to go through all the powers, but definitely is very cool to see. Just once again, just more X-Men abilities. It is very cool. This is the first X-Men film, I think, without Logan, and so it is a bit of a shame that we don't get to, Wolverine is pretty cool to see, so it's a bit of a shame that we don't get to see Logan, but yeah, even so, just all these powers, I think, are cool powers. Like, it's definitely also, like, in the early stages, like, it's not, like, very, like, I guess the original trilogy had the benefit of, like, the characters being developed to the point where they're, like, actually skilled with their powers, whereas in this film, it's not on the same level. It's like Magneto is also still kind of not fully at an, man, I'm stumbling over my words today. Magneto is not okay, this is a hard phrase to say. He's not at an advanced, that was 3 A's, okay? Not at an advanced stage to where he can use his powers like extremely efficiently. So there is that side of things, but even so, it is still very cool. Alex, when he uses his powers, like the Havoc and all that, I don't really care for Banshees. It's like not the most cool, I would say. Mystique doesn't have too much. Mystique was definitely better in the original trilogy where she was actually doing more like spy stuff. In this film, it doesn't feel like she's doing as much fighting. Charles has like a lot of moments where he actually utilizes his powers, which he doesn't really do as much in the original series, I feel like. So overall, the action, I'm going to give probably, I would say I'll go like a 6.5. I'll say good action, but yeah, I think more of it is less so. There's a teleporter as Zizzle, who is cool. I guess Riptide was fine with the Cyclones and stuff. It was good action, but definitely I think there was definitely moments in the original trilogy that I would say was probably better, I would say, but it's still good action, I would say. In terms of the worst thing I would say is, I don't really have anything in mind. I'm trying to think of something specific, but I cannot really think of anything, so I'll just reuse the worst score, which was the settings. And so yeah, I'm more so when for the worst thing or the best thing, if I can't think of something like on the spot, I don't really want to like start wasting time trying to think of something. So if something doesn't just immediately pop out, I'm going to try to just reuse the or score more so instead of like just wasting I know right now I'm wasting time explaining this, but I still just want to get that out there, I guess. So yeah, worst thing, I'll just reuse the settings. It's like above average settings, but definitely not anything amazing. In terms of the best thing, I would say that the best thing is definitely still like the ideological battles in these films. These themes are definitely, I would say, like amazing. I would say 8.5. I really like these movies just because of these ideological battles between the characters, and in this film specifically, like the fact that it's like the origin story. I could also say that it's also like as an origin story, I would say that it is. As an origin story, I would probably just say it was like a great origin story. I would give it like an 8 out of 10 as an origin story. But yeah, in terms of the actual ideological battles, I think that it is 8.5. Definitely, I thought that it was amazing. And yeah, honestly, I don't know. With themes specifically, I don't always know how high to rate themes because themes don't feel as substantive as something like some of the other categories I could rate. But yeah, I'll go a I feel like I'm being a bit too generous with the theme. Actually, I feel like fine. I'm gonna say an 8 out of 10 because then I can also include the plot, which I gave a 4 to 5, so that doubles to an 8 out of 10. And I will also say, as an origin story, I'd also say it's like an 8 out of 10. As the themes, I'll be a bit harsh. I'll just call it great themes because I guess it's not completely original since the original trilogy kind of focuses on that as well. So I'm gonna be a bit harsh because that way I can also include the plot. I mean, it would give it a higher baseline score overall. But anyway, yeah, any extra notes that I did not mention? This film had good music. I did like the music. I'm pretty sure it's actually made by, I think his name is Matthew Vaughn, I'm pretty sure. I'm going to check real quick. Right, it was Matthew Vaughn that made this film. For some reason, the whole page didn't load, so I saw that it was Matthew Vaughn, but I couldn't see the list of like other films I made. I'm pretty sure, though, he made Kick-Ass, he made Argyle, which I do like those films. I think he made The Kingsman, which is also like some great films, so definitely I do like this director a lot. And yeah, the music, I did mention already, the music was definitely there, like had some very good soundtrack, I will say. So yeah, that is all of the extra notes. I already mentioned everything up until this point, so I'm going to do the calculations. So King Crimson. Alright, so it ends up coming out to about a 7 out of 10, and I think I'd probably give it that. I think I would say that this was a pretty good film. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Out of all of the X-Men films, I would actually say this was probably my favorite one so far. I liked it more than X-Men Origins Wolverine. I definitely liked it more than I think the original X-Men as well as X2, and I'm pretty sure I gave The Last Stand a 6.5, so I think as of the moment this is actually probably my favorite X-Men film so far, and I'm excited for the next ones because I definitely think that out of all the X-Men films from the first time, from what I remember, Days of Future Past was always my favorite X-Men film. And I did like Apocalypse, I think, more than most people did, so I am also excited to rewatch that one. I never saw Dark Phoenix, and once again, New Mutants is a horror one, so hopefully I'll be able to deal with that one. So yeah, I think that we're still a good while away from those. So yeah, anyway, so yeah, overall 7 out of 10, pretty good film, and so yeah, that is pretty much all there is to it. So if you have any recommendations, any shows, movies, video game stories, anime, manga, web series, anything that you want me to review, leave it in the comments and I will maybe possibly check it out. With that said, that is pretty much all there is to it, so let's leave it at that.